Picture the expansion of the 19th century railroads, right?
Oh yeah, that classic romanticized image of progress.
Exactly. But imagine what happens when a massive, noisy, smoke-belching train station tries to set up shop in a town that absolutely does not want it. Today, we're doing a custom deep dive for you into the modern equivalent of that.
Right, because the cloud is trying to build a physical station. And, well, that station requires an astronomical footprint.
It really does. We are zeroing in on the proposed $10 billion Imperial Valley Data Center, or IVDC, out in California.
And our mission here is to unpack this really fierce collision between the global AI arms race and, intense local infrastructure politics.
Oh, that meeting was intense. You got this massive macroeconomic promise crashing headfirst into sheer local panic.
Right. I mean, residents were terrified. They were talking about a localized 4-degree temperature spike or
Yeah.
the entire power grid collapsing. Someone even brought up Lake Tahoe as this cautionary tale of data centers just sucking a region dry.
Which, given the economic reality on the ground, makes attention so much higher. I mean,
Yeah.
Imperial County is facing roughly 19% unemployment.
And that's structural unemployment, right? It's a persistent mismatch of jobs and geography, not just some temporary seasonal dip.
So when developers walk in promising, 1,688 union construction jobs.
Yeah, and nearly $29 million in annual property taxes. It is a massive deal.
But, okay, let's unpack this for a second. Given the billions of dollars AI startups have been incinerating lately, aren't the locals totally justified in their fear?
How do you mean?
Well, thinking they'll be left with this giant, water-guzzling ghost town when the tech bubble bursts.
I get that. And it seems like a huge risk until you look at how municipal tax structures actually work.
Okay.
There's a fundamental disconnect there.
Between the software and the hardware, right?
Exactly. A data center generates reliable civic tax revenue based on the immense physical value of the concrete, the steel, the computing equipment.
Right, so that $28.75 million flows to the county, regardless of whether the tenant's AI algorithms succeed or operate at a massive loss.
Yep, they tax the physical building, not the app subscriptions.
Okay, so the tax revenue is basically locked in concrete. But, you can't buy off a dried up aquifer or a rolling blackout.
Which is the real panic driving the opposition.
Exactly. But what blows my mind when you look at the actual engineering blueprints is that this place isn't gulping down the town's drinking water at all.
Not even a drop. It uses a purple pipe system running entirely on treated municipal wastewater.
And the treatment process actually creates a surplus of clean water, right?
Yeah, and that excess, along with a $1.5 million donation, is actually being directed to help restore the dying Salton Sea.
Okay, but what about that 4-degree temperature spike the residents were so terrified of?
Oh, that was a complete misreading of the data.
Wait, really? How so?
Someone literally grabbed an IPCC global climate model projecting a worst-case scenario for the entire planet by the year 2100. Yes, and they mistakenly attributed that planetary warming to the exhaust fans of this specific facility.
That is a wild game of telephone. But what about the power grid? You mentioned that Tahoe anecdote had people spooked.
Right, but the Tahoe situation was about complex interstate utility contracts expiring. It wasn't a direct power drain.
Oh, okay. And in Imperial Valley, the facility relies on an interruptible service contract, right?
Exactly. So if a massive August heat wave hits, the data center software talks to the grid.
And the utility can just cut them off.
They have absolute authority to immediately sever power to the data center to prioritize residential air conditioning.
It's like a reverse hospital backup system. Instead of the grid turning on a generator to save the hospital, the data center automatically unplugs itself.
And it doesn't just go dark. It runs on its own 862 megawatt-hour battery system.
Which is, enough juice to power a small city for hours?
Pretty much. It acts as a giant shock absorber, instantly removing demand from the regional network to save the town's power.
So the engineering physically solves the water and power fears. Why is this project completely paralyzed in the courts?
Well, that comes down to the realities of California's complex zoning laws.
Right, because the developer deliberately chose a site already zoned for heavy industrial use.
Exactly, which legally allows them to use a by right ministerial process.
Meaning it's just a checklist. If they tick the boxes, the city legally has to approve it without discretionary public hearings.
Or the standard California Environmental Quality Act review. And opponents obviously see that as dodging environmental oversight.
which sparked lawsuits from the neighboring city and even state legislation like SB 887 to try and stop it.
But the developers didn't just take it. They countersued, alleging greenmail.
Greenmail, like blackmail but environmental.
Basically, they claim advocacy groups are using environmental litigation as extortion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they pointed to a neighboring geothermal project where a group demanded an $83 million settlement just to drop their opposition.
That is intense. And they also alleged the local utility board demanded a $4 billion poison pill.
Yes, requiring billions up front for future power infrastructure, creating this impossible financial hurdle just to kill the project.
And stalling everything, costing the region over $300 million so far.
Right.
Here's where it gets really interesting for you listening. Is this environmental law actually protecting the community, or has it just become a weapon for financial extraction?
Looking impartially at your notes, it simply comes down to fundamentally opposing views of the exact same system.
Right. Opponents view these regulations as an essential democratic safeguard against unchecked corporate development.
While the developers view the system as a vehicle for economic sabotage.
So what does this all mean for you? Every app, every AI tool you use daily requires massive physical space somewhere.
The cloud isn't in the sky. It's made of steel and concrete.
Exactly. And the IVDC is a perfect microcosm of the global struggle to find a home for the hardware powering our digital lives.
Because the demand for advanced computing is accelerating at breakneck speed, but the local resistance is proving to be just as fierce.
Which leaves us with this final thought for you to mull over. As society demands ever faster technology, if every local jurisdiction successfully uses administrative friction to block the train from stopping in their own backyard,
How will the physical tracks of the future internet actually get built?